about the Criterion Closet videos where filmmakers and actors of note will go to Criterion's offices and get to pick out some movies from the big closet of merchandise that they have, and
I think you might have.
I may have.
Is this on YouTube or?
Yeah, they're just on YouTube. The one with Barry Jenkins is very amusing because he just takes a shitload of stuff. But there's one with Bong Joon-ho, and he goes in and he picks up this one movie. He's like, "Oh, I used to have this on DVD, but Park Chan-wook borrowed it and swiped it, and he never gave it back."
Beautiful.
Apparently, Bong Joon-ho and Park Chan-wook know each other well enough to steal each other's Criterion DVD.
That's delightful.
It is rather delightful.
I think we imagine that there's a collection of great filmmakers who all interact and know each other in our minds.
Well, Coppola, Spielberg, Lucas, and Scorsese are all friends, so it's it's hard not to imagine things that way.
And it's delightful when you see things that justify that mindset.
Yeah. Alrighty then. Well, let's roll. Welcome back to the Hack Fraud Show. We're back
and better than ever.
Remains to be seen. We're back and kicking with another regular episode after last week's rather delightful discussion of what we've been watching.
Yeah.
I think due to that, the volume of those things might be much smaller this week, but...
I only have one.
Okay, I only have a couple. But anyway, this week, as promised, we are queuing up Memories of Murder and Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring, two more classics of South Korean cinema, both released in 2003, which was just a blowout year for that nation, apparently.
Yeah.
Between Old Boy and these movies. But what have we been watching? I mean, I know we just did a whole hour-long episode about that, but...
Well, it's been a week since we've done it.
It's been a week since then.
What I have seen is Okja.
Yes. I've been meaning to watch this, and every time I've, almost watched it, I've been like, not right now. Maybe later.
Oh, okay. What did I send in the group chat? Because I kind of want to reproduce that verbatim here.
We got some preamble texts ahead of this episode after John watched Okja. You said, "It's one of the strangest movies yet this year. Imagine you took the script to a kid's movie, then someone added a bunch of curse words and dark scenes, and then directed by someone with no knowledge of those scenes before filming."
That is not as much of a pejorative as it might have seemed.
Okay, because based on that, I was like, has Bong Joon-ho just lost his touch completely?
Well, it's not that he's lost his touch. He might have lost part of his mind, but because the tone of this thing is just all over the place. It doesn't know if it. I mean, it has scenes that are right out of a boy and his dog kids movie.
Mm.
But then it's superseded with a really blunt depiction of a slaughterhouse. And people are cursing all the time. And it will just juxtapose dark with light just all the time. And sometimes the soothing score will play as the kid and the monster are interacting. But it's also put right next to Jake Gyllenhaal losing his goddamn mind. What the fuck is Jake Gyllenhaal doing in this movie? He plays a sort of bastardization of Steve Irwin as the scientific face of this sort of of this massive corporation, and it is one of the worst performances I've seen from him. I have no idea what he's doing.
I will say this. Jake Gyllenhaal is one of our most committed working actors, no matter what he's in, and that can be both for good and for ill sometimes.
Yeah, I genuinely just have no idea. And this movie also made me think of, is Tilda Swinton infallible? Which, again, is a cardinal sin. That's not to say she's bad, but there's a moment I'm going, does she quite know what she's doing?
I don't know. From the sounds of this, it doesn't sound like anyone involved in this movie knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it's a movie with some really interesting ideas because it seems to be all about these sort of I'm going to use these terms, and I hope this doesn't start a fire, like these sort of PC, eco-friendly facade these, like, horrific corporations put up. As far as, I think, like, Coke does this all the time. It's like with their, like, Coca-Cola Light, and like, so far, and they show a bunch of ethnically diverse people on TV, and they say, oh, it's eco-friendly and all natural.
Yeah.
But then you hear stories of how they're fucking over people in India with their goddamn factories. It's just about that, like, dichotomy of, like, the facade of a corporation and, like, the horrible things that they do, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And there's also, like, honestly, the slaughterhouse scene is one of the better scenes because you just go, like, yeah, that's what a slaughterhouse looks like. I know it's, like, filled with, like, these mutant hippo pig abominations, but that's what a slaughterhouse looks like. And I just don't expect that in this movie, but hey, it's pretty all right.
Yeah.
And, like, the main kid is... There's both something admirable about her because she's just so committed to this fucking, like, Okja, this goddamn super pig is what they call it.
Yeah.
Which is just a giant CGI abomination with big puppy dog eyes. But she is so committed to it as so far as running through Seoul to catch a running truck to catch it. As far as, like, going through a slaughterhouse to try and save it. It's like, and also, like, destroying the Seoul subway system to try and save it. This kid just seems actively insane.
It's so weird. Because, like, the critical reaction to it was, like, generally good, but kind of, like, a little bit divided. So I was kind of on the fence about whether to see it. And then I got, like, 3 or 4 people, like, within the span of a week told me, like, it's amazing, you have to see it. So I was kind of, like, really leaning towards seeing it.
Yeah.
But
well, that's the thing about it is as far, like, even some of the more positive reviews I've seen for it all do admit it's a jumble.
Yeah.
And, like, I will admit that, like, some of these pieces are really interesting, like the corporate satire is fairly interesting, and the slaughterhouse is far more interesting than you might expect from this kind of movie, but, like, it just does seem like something that, like, several different people had different ideas going into it, which is strange because Bong Joon-ho had a lot of influence over every part of it. He did the story, he wrote it, he directed it.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of strange. I will admit, like, it is gorgeous, this movie.
Yeah.
Beyond, like, how, like, you can always tell, like, the Okja is CGI, but, like, it's a fairly convincing puppy dog thing. Like, you do get kind of invested with it.
Yeah. CGI is good at rendering very convincing puppy dog eyes, I will say
puppy
that.
dog eyes, yeah, so... I will recommend seeing it, because it is kind of like one of the It movies of the summer, as far as, like, especially, like, wasn't it Buddha, was it Sundance or Venice?
No, it was a Cannes. Because they screened it, well, because first there was the Netflix logo, which people were very upset about, and then it was projected in the wrong aspect ratio for, like, 20 minutes before they fixed it. So it had kind of a rough time at Cannes on the whatever you call it.
So it's
on the Riviera.
It's this movie. It's interesting. It's sometimes pretty funny. Like, there was, like, in the beginning is, like, laugh out loud funny with like a Tilda Swinton as, like, the CEO giving, like, this bombastic eco-friendly speech, and then just saying, well, it's gotta taste fucking good, and then just cutting. It's I can't give, like, a concrete recommendation, but I would recommend, like, there's some really interesting stuff in it, even as much of a jumble as it is.
Okay.
And it's got a lot going for it, this movie.
Okay, I may still check it out.
Yes, I think just remember that, like, it is a mess as far as tone is concerned.
Okay. All right. Well, Reed, do you want to tell us about Criminal Minds or whatever else you've been watching?
That's the sound of a man who desperately doesn't want to talk about Criminal Minds.
I feel like, so basically I was doing more than one thing by watching it, so I think I'm going to refrain from talking about these 2 episodes in full. So maybe some other time.
Okay.
But that secret movie assignment, it's coming up very soon.
The tease continues.
Reed, you can just say, hey, I didn't have time to watch it this week. I'll save it for another time.
Okay.
That happened to us last week.
The secret movie is still coming. Okay, good to know. And it's not Bottle Rocket, because we talked about Bottle Rocket.
Yeah, it's not about us. Yeah, I genuinely don't know what he's talking about.
Okay. Alright, but that's on the way. Okay, so, me. Hey, hi. Yes, I had a busy week, but, me being me, I still had time to watch a couple of things.
Well, of course.
As I was telling you before we started recording, lately, whenever I have the time to watch something, it usually comes down to either watching a movie or watching another episode of The Wire, and I usually choose The Wire because I am determined to get through the rest of it, hopefully before school starts. And Season 4 is actually very, very engaging. I don't want to jump the gun because I haven't finished it yet, but this may be the greatest season of television ever produced. I'm not 100% on that yet, but it's certainly possible. Anyway, but the movies I have been watching, let's see, the other day I saw Michael Mann's Thief from 1981, starring James Caan of The Godfather fame. Good movie. I'm not very well versed in Michael Mann. I've only seen this and Heat, and I was not a big fan of Heat, but I still want to see more of his movies. This movie is good. It's interesting. So James Caan stars as you would expect a thief, a very expert safe cracker who is looking to get out of the business, kind of a classic, like, one last job and then I'm done type of story.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a very kind of visually stylish movie, and also it has a very interesting, like, electronic synth-driven score, one whole year before Blade Runner came along with its own version of that. Yeah, it's got a lot of good stuff going for it. The visuals are really cool. The central, like, heist sequence is very well done. They use this, like, welding device to break into the vault, and the spark-filled visuals that result are very engaging. It's a pretty entertaining movie, and I think one of the people I was watching it with made an interesting comment that I just wanted to bring up. He said that, like, Michael Mann makes movies about, like, people who are very good at, like, a specific thing. Like, Heat is about, like, bank robbers who are very good at, like, being bank robbers. This is about a guy who's very good at cracking safes. Apparently Collateral is about a hitman who's, like, very good at being a hitman. So that's just something interesting. I recommend this movie. It's not essential by any means, but if you're looking for a kind of fun little, entertaining, well-made, well-shot, well-acted kind of heist movie, it's a good one. Although I would recommend seeing Rafifi first if you haven't.
Okay. I've been meaning to get into Michael Mann because he sounds like the sort of director I'd be like. Because of course, like, I'm a fan of, like, these super stylish filmmakers.
Yeah.
So it's I really like Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, he's not quite on that level. He's not, like, I wouldn't say super stylish, but he has a style, and he's very sleek, Michael Mann. So okay. I would like to see more of his movies at some point. I've been meaning to see Collateral for ages because Darren Franich just raves about that movie constantly.
Yeah.
But so that's Thief. Let's see, what did I watch last night? I just watched it. Why can't I remember? Oh, shit. Hold on. I literally just watched this movie last night. Oh, yes. Okay. I think I may have brought this up before because I saw part of it, but this is the first time I finally sat down and watched it all the way through. I watched a movie called Love and Mercy. Have you heard of this?
When did it come out?
A couple years ago. I think in either 2014 or 2015.
Yes, I have heard of it.
Okay, yeah. It's a biopic of Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. Good, really good, solid biopic. It takes a unique approach in that it cuts between two different, like, very specific parts of his life. You have Paul Dano as Brian Wilson in the 1960s, working on Pet Sounds and trying to get Smile off the ground. That stuff's all good. And then you also have John Cusack as him in the 80s, romancing Melinda Ledbetter, played by Elizabeth Banks, and the start of their relationship and her kind of trying to rescue him from the abusive care of his psychiatrist, played by Paul Giamatti, chewing all the scenery. Paul Giamatti in this movie.
Well, that sounds delightful.
It kind of is.
Is he dressed like a mango?
What?
Is he dressed like a mango?
No, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but
chewing scenery, so he must be a foodstuff.
Oh, I see. No, but he does have a rather spectacular wig. This movie is good. I think most reviews have said this, and it's 100% true. Like, the Paul Dano stuff is much, much more compelling. Like, I could watch, like, an 8-hour miniseries of Paul Dano as Brian Wilson, like, working on Pet Sounds. That stuff is just incredibly done. Apparently, they, like, did a very good job of, like, recreating, like, his kind of studio techniques, like, in the movie.
Interesting.
So that's all good. That's not to say that the John Cusack, Elizabeth Banks stuff is bad. It is, like, a little more, like, melodramatic and a little bit more lo-fi. It is a very sweet story. Like, they're both very charming people. Elizabeth Banks especially is super charming. It's well done. It just kind of, like, I don't know. I feel like I could have used a lot more of Paul Dano, and I was pretty much set with John Cusack and Elizabeth Banks. But it's a good movie. It's a good, solid movie. It looks really good. The guy who shot it is Robert Yeoman, Wes Anderson's cinematographer. So he does a very good job. I saw him in person. Hey. Seems like a nice guy. So yeah, so that's all good. It's a good movie. I'd recommend it if you're interested in, music and rock music history at all. It's a good movie. So that's Love and Mercy. And then just one last thing. I don't want to get too deep into this because I was kind of half watching it. Like, I had it on in the background while I was doing other things. But I finally rewatched Catherine Bigelow's Zero Dark 30. It seemed the appropriate time because she's got a new movie coming out soon.
Yeah, what, Detroit is it?
Yeah, Detroit, which I'm looking forward to.
It looks fascinating.
Zero Dark 30. This movie has a very curious reputation, as I'm sure you will all be aware. It got mired down a lot when it came out in, like, the was it pro-torture, like, what, in its depiction of, like, the quote-unquote enhanced interrogation techniques. I tend to, like, not, like, I try to not, like, read... listen, I like this movie. I think it's pretty entertaining. I just think, the main reason I like it is because, like, I think it's a very good, like, procedural type of movie. Like, I talk about The Wire. This is, like, The Wire version of, like, the War on Terror a little bit. Like, it focuses very specifically on the hunt for Osama bin Laden. Jessica Chastain is incredible in the movie. I love her, like, just in general, but especially in this movie, she's giving a great performance. Catherine Bigelow, she's very good at, giving a real, like, kind of, I don't know, feel to things. Even, like, Point Break, which is a very, like, goofy movie, is, like, very, like, slickly directed. Like, the action sequences in that are really pretty incredible. And the cinematography in this movie I've always really liked a lot. And the writing, it's weird because it can sometimes get kind of bogged down in, like, technical talk and, like, terminology that it can be kind of hard to parse. Like, I definitely understood a lot more of this movie than I did, like, when I saw it when I was in high school. I just grasped a lot more things this time around. Listen, I don't think this movie is pro-torture, and I really don't want to get too mired down with that, because that's all, like, anyone seems to ever talk about with this movie anymore. Those torture scenes are, like, really hard to watch. They are brutal, and I really do not think that this movie is endorsing that type of thing. Now, I will say this. I just compared this movie to The Wire. The Wire is extremely clear-eyed and critical about, like, the war on drugs in a way that this movie is not about the war on terror. And that's fine, but it does stop it from, like, going truly over the top and being a great, like, account of the war on terror. As it is, it is a very pretty sharp, interesting, like, well done procedural about like the hunt for Bin Laden. It's very well done in that regard.
Yeah.
Also, that like 30-minute sequence at the end where the Navy SEALs go in to take him out. I love how if you're watching this movie in a room with any light in it at all, you can't tell what the fuck's going on. But I don't know. I like this movie. I do think it is maybe a little irresponsible in the way it does not in the way it so like kind of avoids like rendering any kind of judgment on anything. But I don't know. It's done with a lot of like kind of journalistic objectivity, which is understandable because like the writer of it was a journalist. I just think that like I definitely don't hate this movie. Like there are people who absolutely loathe this movie, and I am not one of those people, but I do think it maybe is not as like responsible an account of the war on terror as maybe it should have been. But
well, it's always going to be difficult to get a earnest, like clear-eyed depiction of the war on terror while we're still in it. Like this is something that's still going. We are still in the war on terror as we speak.
Yeah.
So like it is impossible to truly clear-eyed depiction of it. Does that mean we shouldn't make these movies? No, but that's the quagmire you're going to get in when you do make them.
That is true, although I will say this, like, All the President's Men was made, like, 2 years after Watergate, and is very clear-eyed about that, and, like, you know, we got a lot of, like, very clear-eyed Vietnam movies, like, not long after that war ended, so I'm just not sure, you know, where all that came from.
But also, like, the cultural clout around that war was very different. I've been thinking about this lately as far as, like, whether this is an issue with, like, the very construct of the volunteer soldier, and whether I think it's possible to have a truly sympathetic portrayal of that, and whether you should have a truly sympathetic portrayal of a volunteer soldier, because, like, that's one thing I've been thinking. Like, as a filmmaker, I would never portray a volunteer soldier as a protagonist, and this is something that's very controversial in our country.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to render one with true sympathy with my mindset, with my worldview, with my moral code.
It's tough. I do think it's possible to make a movie that is sympathetic to volunteer soldiers while also depicting, you know, residents of the Middle East as people, which we still have not gotten there. Like, I always come back to American Sniper is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Like, I hate that movie. It is awful.
Even the Hurt Locker gets into that sometimes too. Like the opening scene where like they see like a civilian, what to our minds as film watchers, what just looks like a civilian pulling out a cell phone, and they just instantly go bomb.
Which, you know,
that's a worldview.
That you know, which if that had been framed a little better, could have been a very like striking like critique and like insight into the minds of these people. But
but just as presented, it just looks like wow. I now know the mindset of the people we're working with here.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough, and I don't want to get too bogged down in this because this could easily fill a whole 2-hour episode. But
it's a quagmire, and it will continue to be a quagmire until we get at least like a year from this thing.
Yeah. But that's Zero Dark 30. I'm still looking forward to Detroit. Catherine Bigelow is a very talented director, and I'm interested to see.
We're getting out of the Middle East and war on terror, so that will be a good thing, I guarantee.
I certainly hope so, and think so. Well, let's get to some Korean movies here, boys.
Yes.
All right.
More controversy.
More controversy indeed. Where do we want to start?
Reed, where do you want to start?
Should I forget the title? Oh, fuck. This is embarrassing. Pulling out the phone.
Memories of Murder.
Spring, summer, fall, winter, and spring.
No, I want to start with Memories of Murder.
Okay.
The one you didn't see.
Okay, Memories of Murder.
I don't mean to judge you. This is... I do this for comedic effect.
Okay, Memories of Murder, directed by our old friend Bong Joon-ho.
Yes.
His second movie, I believe. I think ever.
Was this really?
I think so. Okay, so this movie is based on the true story of actually apparently like the first reported serial killer in the history of Korea. So we begin in 1987, I believe, with Inspector Park discovering a body in a field. Inspector Park, played by Song Kang-ho, is that actor's name. He's a recurring collaborator of Bong Joon-ho. He's appeared in this, Snowpiercer, and The Host.
Okay.
Yes.
So he, by the way, gives a great performance in this movie. He's an excellent actor.
Well, the performances in this movie are just off the charts.
They are across the board very good. So
this movie also takes place in whether like I'm not too sure you know about this, but like at this point, South Korea was in a kind of like military dictatorship.
Oh, okay, I did not know that, but that actually
like
makes sense.
It becomes a sort of like critique of that culture along the way.
Yeah. All right, so this movie basically follows along a period of, I'm not sure how long it's supposed to take place. I think the murders themselves took place over the span of a few years.
Well, they play with time a bit.
Yeah.
In the movie.
So we have Inspector Park, part of this like very small like police department, this local Korean police department. They, of course, like, it actually like gives a lot of context to the movie to know that like these are the first serial killings in like Korean history. Like it explains like why the police are so like flummoxed as to how to deal with this case.
And like they're also, and it's also like this police department just rotten to the core.
Yeah. They bring in another detective from Seoul, Inspector Seo, to, I think that's his name, to help them with the case. He arrives in spectacular fashion when Inspector Park sees him, like, going to help a woman along the road, and the woman, of course, knows there have been killings, so she's frightened of him. Inspector Park goes and beats him up, and then is like, "Oh, you're the detective from Seoul."
There's a lot of like misunderstood beatings in this movie.
Yeah. This movie's a very interesting movie, and it's very entertaining.
I really like this one.
Yeah, and just across the board, like, it's kind of firing on all cylinders. The cinematography in it is unbelievable. Every frame of
the long take is wondrous.
Yes, every frame of painting did like a whole episode on like the cinematography and staging of this movie, and I would encourage everyone to go watch that because it's an incredible like breakdown of.
It's also a way to point out the wonders in the movie.
Yeah.
You go, oh wait, this is a one shot. Fuck.
Yeah. Bong Joon-ho, like other directors, notably Spielberg, is very good at like kind of changing the framing of a like kind of a shot to kind of make you forget that it's just one continuous shot, which is very interesting.
Of course.
So, like, the narrative that this movie takes is very interesting, because they bring in this mentally disabled kid who they have, like, strong evidence is the culprit. And the first interrogation, like, it shouldn't be funny, but, like, the way that he stages and shoots it, it's funny. Like, the Inspector Park's partner comes in, and, like, Park is telling the kid, like, oh, don't worry, like, he's a very reasonable guy, like, but, you know, if you lie to him, like, he'll get fired up. Detective, like, walks down the stairs, kicks the kid in the chest, knocks him over.
There's, like, the, like, corrupt nature of this police force is played for dark comedy.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating.
It's so interesting.
Like, especially, like, how, like, there's a particular scene where I think is it like a strip club, or is it just like a normal bar they're at?
I think it's just a bar.
I think it's just a bar where, like, they're just there, and, like, them tussling over each other is in, like, this big medium wide, and it's just, like, really funny of them just, like, dragging each other into the frames.
Yeah. It's interesting. You really, like, you experience, like, the tension, like, between the characters in such an interesting way. Like, Detective So is, like, very methodical, like, goes through all the documents. His kind of recurring catchphrase is, like, documents never lie. And, like, as the movie goes on, he kind of becomes more and more unhinged as the case, like, wears on him, and, like, all their like, possible leads just lead into dead ends.
Like, the unbearing, like, ambiguity of it just, like, keeps increasing. It's like they keep thinking, like, oh, we got him, and then, oh, fuck, we don't.
Yeah, and, you know, if you like, if you read about this case, like, they are still unsolved. Like, this movie ends with no real resolution of any kind, and that distinguishes it from a similar movie about this sort of thing, David Fincher's Zodiac,
yes.
which is a movie that I
Oh,
really like. But I will acknowledge that this movie kind of does the ambiguous unsolved case thing better than that movie does.
well, Zodiac doesn't even like portray it as like as like something that should be unsolved. It like goes as far as like yeah, Arthur Allen Lee guy. That's pretty much the end of Zodiac.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get too mired down into that, but yeah,
Neither do I.
this
This is a
movie
better movie.
this movie is just fascinating, just in how determinedly ambiguous it is, and determinedly like just kind of just maddening as the case escalates, and just nothing goes their way, and just and genuinely gripping. Like those sequences, like they reach a point where they find out that like the killer always requests a certain song to be played on rainy nights before he commits the murders. And like they'll hear the song come on the radio, and they'll just scramble to like get something going to get the city on lockdown so they can try and find this guy, and it just never works. And it's heartbreaking, and it's so like masterfully done, like the tension of those sequences.
And it's also sort of like set on like before the backdrop of sort of paranoid South Korea. Like one of the big set pieces in the movie is like a school doing like I think it's like an airstrike drill.
Yeah.
Where like they have like sirens going off and people are like going down slides as far as like this huge drill.
Yeah. It's interesting because like the first like 45 minutes or so of the movie is like a very strange, almost farcical like black comedy where they're like interrogating this kid and then find out like there's something that disqualifies him, and then like they kind of have to let him go and apologize. And that's all like very interesting and very strange to see it like all kind of just really like just played for comedy that way.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well, that speck of like dark comedy stays throughout. Like, is it in the first 45 minutes where like one of the inspectors goes to a sauna to try and see who shaves their hair?
I forgot about that. Yes, I think that's later, but. Yeah, they do keep that streak of dark humor going. Yeah, he comes up with a theory that like they never find any hair like at the crime scenes because like these women have all been raped, and he's like, there's no hair evidence, so he must be shaved down there. So he goes to the sauna to like check out all the men, and he's.
And it like just cuts to him with his wife, and she's, "Are you not going to take a shower? I've had enough with showers."
Yeah, it's also funny because like it's just a shot of him like sitting in the like in the hot tub as like a bunch of men walk by, and then like a little kid walks by, and he's kind of like, "Oh my god."
Oh goodness!
It's very well done. This movie's great.
Oh yeah, I love this, and also like the ending is unbelievable.
Unbelievable, yeah. I
just like the end where like they at the train tunnel is just unbelievably shot, and just like the emotions running through that as like the faith in like crime and forensic just sort of melts from them, and there like grows a humanity that they never had in the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Like you really do feel, even though like the movie is like very focused like on the case, like you really do like feel these police detectives like as people, you know, like, Seo is just destroyed by like his failure to find this guy, and Park also like you kind of see him like just becoming like he already seems like kind of like fed up with the system like when you meet him, and he only kind of becomes more so as the movie goes on. Like, to the point where you see him in the epilogue, like, he's now become a businessman, and...
Yeah, and there's the fascinating scenes with him and his wife, and they just kind of discuss, like, what the job does to him.
Yeah. Which
are just really fascinating and wonderfully human. So yeah, like I think this movie is like it's like far, of course, for my taste, it's this wonderful sort of document of like dictatorial South Korea, which we don't get too often.
Yeah.
Because there's Big Brother to the north, which is all our fears about totalitarian Korea.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know about totalitarian South Korea, so there you go.
Oh yeah. So yeah. Oh yeah. I think this is a wonderful movie that depicts sort of like what crime scene investigation does to people. The sort of like part of Korean culture. The sort of like sort of suffocating ambiguity.
Yeah, it's a wonderful document of like, you know, a terrifying moment in Korean history, and like just it's also just a great like police procedural and police thriller, and you know, it's great. It's a great movie. Bong Joon-ho is an incredible director, and this keeps the backward winning streak alive.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
So there you go. That's
There.
Memories of Murder.
A hearty recommendation of Memories of Murder.
Yes, indeed. All right, but let's talk about Kim Ki-duk's Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring, shall we?
Yes.
All right. What a gorgeous movie! What an unbelievably beautiful movie.
I think just like the location they are in, like this little lake surrounded by mountains with this little would it be a temple or a shrine?
I'm not sure what to call it. I would call it a temple. I think you could also probably like call it a monastery. It's like a Buddhist temple where like a monk and his apprentice live in isolation.
Yeah, and like this location, it's just so much character and there's just so much love and care put into this location.
That floating monastery is like one of the all-time great film locations. It is now seared on my memory forever.
Oh yeah.
It almost seems like a Shakespearean stage, almost.
It does, in a way, yeah.
It almost resembles one.
There's a lot of economy of use of, like, a singular setting, and there's very much lots of detail, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, new emotions as you see these places through, like, different periods of time.
Yeah. And also, like, I think they barely, like, venture, like, outside of this place. Like, I don't think they go outside of, like, the nearby vicinity at all in the movie.
No, I don't think they ever do.
Yeah, so very interesting. So this movie follows a Buddhist monk and his apprentice at various stages of the apprentice's life. You see him like first as like a little boy, then as a teenager, then as a young man, then as like a middle-aged man, and then finally as an older man. Very briefly, but. Yeah, it's just a very, like, meditative kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reflection on sort of life and morality.
Yeah.
And sort of, like, I assume there's a lot of Buddhist musings in this movie that just go right over our heads.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think there's, like, an abundance of Buddhist imagery in this movie that I probably did not understand at all.
Yeah.
Especially with the tying the stones to fish, snake, and frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sort of this sort of thing that is. There's a surprising amount of animal cruelty in this movie.
I was about to say they do not seem to give a fuck about animal mistreatment over in Korea.
Like there's the extensive scene where he just dips a cat's tail into ink and writes on the thing. And I'm like, motherfucker. You filmmakers took a real cat and started writing on a dock.
Suffice it to say, there's some stuff with this movie that would never fly in America. But
oh no! But goddamn it, the scene where he like ties rocks to animals and then gets a rock tied to him is great scene, great little morality point.
Yes, yeah. It's all very well done. I don't know. I'm reticent to just like summarize the whole movie because it's very kind of meandering and like, but also like very like focused on like these particular moments.
It's very laser pointed on what its subjects are.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like this movie. It's very, it takes patience, but it is, you know, it's a very interesting just kind of meditation on life and morality and all this stuff, and like that scene where, like, the master forces... Like, there's a scene, like, the third segment, the apprentice returns after having been gone for... Autumn. When the apprentice returns after many years, he having killed his wife for having an affair with another man. He returns, he's very full of anger. He actually tries to kill himself, and the master stops him from doing that. And then forces him to carve... Chinese, like, innumerable Chinese characters into like the floor of the temple,
as the police officers come and just kind of, and they're like, hey, someone we gotta get. It's like, no, let him finish.
Let him finish. Yeah.
And they just sort of watch, and they just sit there and watch him do it.
And then he falls asleep, and then they help paint in the letters.
Yeah.
That's all great.
So delightful.
What did y'all think about this movie?
It's a really fascinating movie about forgiveness.
Yeah.
As far as like the character, it's a movie that has the mantra of sort of like it's sort of like life is something that can be like reset and restarted, and like what comes in your past does not seem to define you. As like the apprentice, even after murdering his wife and assumedly going to jail,
yeah,
he comes right back and he comes to the same lifestyle that his master had.
Yeah.
As if nothing else had happened, which is really interesting, especially in our world. We kind of, with criminals, like for us, like we think they go to jail and we never see them again. We don't do anything with them.
Right.
We whenever like really public criminals are about to get out of prison, where there was like a public outcry against their release.
Yeah.
Which is what we're seeing right now.
We're in the throes of it at the moment.
So like this point of view is really interesting.
Yeah, I'd be interested actually to look into see if there are any movies about like people coming out of prison, and then I think kind of Shawshank Redemption is usually like the touchstone for that, but I'd be interested to see if there's anything else. I still really want to see Spike Lee's 25th Hour, which is about a man going into prison.
Fascinating.
But that's beside the point. Reed, what did you think of this movie?
God damn, it's a movie.
It is. It is quite a movie.
See what's nice about like movies with like predictability is that you can see where they're going. But when someone rolled around and then like it's like, oh, people in modern clothing are coming. Oh, this sits in like supposedly like a modern Korea. Okay, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it takes a point on like sort of like the role of spirituality, which is present in more so in Summer with a woman from, I'm gonna say, the city comes.
You know, she's just a woman from Seoul with evil inside her. She's just coming down to the lake to get herself fixed up.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. With what was unexpected male ass there on the rocks.
More just like unexpected fucking.
Yes.
This movie is oddly clear-eyed about like sort of the Buddhist monk lifestyle, as far as like this woman comes in and like, well, do Buddhist monks have to have like an oath of celibacy, or?
I would assume so, but I'm not sure. I mean, based on the way the master reacts, like, I mean, I would assume so. Like, it certainly seems that way. Yeah. But
and there was like the discussion that like lust leads to like possession, which then leads to violence,
right? Which foreshadows the next segment.
Played out in the next piece.
Yeah, it's all very. Yes. I mean, this is going to seem like such an American thing to say, but you can really see like where kind of the Star Wars got all the like the Jedi kind of mysticism from. I shouldn't have even said that. Forget it.
No, your framing with it helped too. It's like, this is going to sound very American. And you say the most American thing.
Yeah. No, I just, you're right. That's just kind of like the main touchstone we have for this kind of like philosophy and thinking in American culture, and I found it like
Jedi are just Buddhist monks with laser sword. That's a thing.
I don't know. I found it utterly fascinating, kind of all the Buddhist stuff in this movie, like the philosophy and the mysticism and all that stuff. I think it's great. I am fascinated by religion, like not just Christianity, but like by religion and religions, in general. And this was just a fascinating look, and I'd be really interested to kind of learn more about Buddhism, actually, and maybe
it's for that reason I really like Silence, even though like that movie is really baggy and all over the place.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a fascinating movie. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeously shot. It's got incredible location work, and I think it's great. And also, apparently, it's like really not like of a piece with this director's other work. Apparently, this was kind of a real departure for him. But I don't know.
I'd still be interested in this guy's other work. This was quite a treat.
Yeah.
Yes, this was a nice treat.
Do we have anything else to say about it?
Go see it. It's slow, but not really glacial. Like this, especially if it's playing with time is really interesting, and I think it is like regularly engaging.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes. I was a little disappointed at the end when the new apprentice goes around stuffing rocks in the mouths of frog, fish, and snake, which is extra cool. And I'm waiting to see. And it was kind of interesting to see, is the apprentice just going to get a boulder stuffed in his face that he punches down and just dies? But I never got that answer.
I will say that, actually, I do agree with you. I do think we only get, like, a moment of this guy kind of in, like, the late stage of his life. And I kind of wish we'd gotten more of that. I'm very curious to see, like, what kind of person he'd become in his elder years.
Like how does he like handle like his apprentice growing up and becoming these things? Is he just his master again, as sort of like the circular structure seems to insinuate?
Yeah.
Or is there something more to that?
Yeah. But, I don't know. I guess that's not what he was what Kim Ki-duk was going for, and that's fine.
I think there is kind of like a sort of like a very circular structure about this movie, even though like it doesn't really have like a circular structure in like the official sense.
Yeah.
It's like Inside Llewyn Davis, almost.
In a way.
Sure.
In a way.
Sure.
Yeah. I just want to know, like, what is up with Korean kids and, mistreating animals with small rocks.
I don't know. What is with them and making movies in 2003? That's another question we'll never know. Answered.
We'll never know. But that's South Korea Week Part 2. It's been a fun couple of weeks, I would say.
I'm glad we took a trip to south of the peninsula.
That's these are great movies, and more people should see them.
You should see them, especially like I don't think I've seen like spring, summer, fall, winter, and spring anywhere.
Yeah, well, the reason I kind of knew about it, the AV Club, I've read their list of best movies of the 2000s decade, and that movie came up on there, and I was just kind of curious about it. But there you go. Yeah, it's a good movie.
Boys, what are we to do next?
Well, I had an idea, which I believe I texted. I think after 2 very fun weeks in South Korea, I'd like to go back to Europe. I'd like to go to Sweden specifically, and I'd like to feel miserable for a little while.
Miserable, but with interesting existential ideas at the heart of your misery.
I'd really like to do some Ingmar Bergman next week.
Okay.
Now,
all right. Which ones are you thinking? I've already seen The Seventh Seal. If you wanted to do that, we could do that.
I will probably watch it because I have not seen it.
Okay.
But I have 2 other movies that I think we could do. I think we should do Persona because that's kind of his other extremely acclaimed movie. And then I don't want to get into like his later stuff. Like seems fascinating, but it's all like really long and I think like very involving in a way that I'm not sure I'm ready for at the moment. Like,
no.
I don't want to get into Fanny and Alexander or Scenes from a Marriage just yet. But we could do... There's a couple of options. Wild Strawberries is another one that tends to come up a lot. Okay. Or we could also do Through a Glass Darkly, which I re-listened to the Vidiots episode on that movie recently, and that movie sounds utterly fascinating.
Yeah. I think Through a Glass Darkly is what I'd really be interested in.
Okay. So I'm going to watch The Seventh Seal. Reed, you can pick and choose whatever sounds interesting to you here.
I may rewatch The Seventh Seal because it has been a little bit.
Okay. So we'll have The Seventh Seal and then Persona and Through a Glass Darkly. Getting some Bergman up in this bitch.
I'm going to be so happy.
We're going to be so happy. We're going to be so glad we did this. I think we will.
We need some Scandinavian angst in this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in life we don't, because, you know, big blue box of death just down the road from me. I love you, Sweden, but not that much.
To paraphrase Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, it's about that time to bring forth the ennui and sublime. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing today. What's the matter with me?
You also just said one of the most American things you've ever said.
Okay. Well, next week we're looking at some Swedish movies, so hopefully I'll be far less American next week.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they are Western, and
that is true.
I know a little bit about Scandinavian angst, so. Granted, I had only a single definition in a general German course, so I'm an idiot. So,
all right, well, coming your way, Ingmar Bergman week and a heaping helping of our friend Max von Sydow.
Of course,
he's in 2 of these movies. Ooh. Not Persona, I think. But also, all these movies are pretty short, so at least we'll be they'll be quick but intense shots of what angst or whatever, what have you. I should just really stop talking. Okay, see you next week.
Goodbye. Hey, I brought up angst. That's my cross to bear.
Okay. John is so close to his laptop camera, I can see every crevice in his face right now.